And that's where Tramadol enters this story. For years, Tramadol was a legal opioid in cycling. It wasn't on the World Anti-Doping Agency's prohibited list, and it wasn't banned by the UCI until 2019. Teams prescribed it to dull chronic pain, but riders internally, well, they discovered that if they took a low dose, well, that took the edge off race day discomfort without technically breaking any rule. The official line was responsible medical use, but unofficially the reality on team buses was this became routine. Tramadol, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a synthetic opioid. It's the weaker cousin of morphine that you see in like Saving Private Ryan getting given to lads who've lost a leg. It's often prescribed post-surgery to give pain relief. It can dull pain and create a mild sense of calm and euphoria. But there's also a bunch of side effects if you read the label on it. Like, I scanned the label and the ones that jumped out at me are like dizziness, nausea, drowsiness, and repeated use has been shown to lead to dependency. Those effects creep up quietly, which is why so many people underestimate Tramadol. Irish rider and former national champ, super respected rider in the peloton, Nicholas Roach, he gave one of the clearest glimpses into this world. In 2015, he gave an interview with controversial Irish journalist Paul Kimmage, and Roach said that he used Tramadol for some time trials. He emphasised it wasn't magic and he hadn't felt drowsy after it. Importantly, at the time, this was completely legal. There was no rule against it. Roach wasn't sitting down here confessing to doping. He was describing standard practice inside the World Tour peloton. He was riding for Team Sky at the time. And that's precisely what makes this revealing. When a respected rider can speak casually about using an opioid for a time trial. We're not talking about to treat pain post-surgery here. We're simply talking about the pain of holding an aero position for 60 minutes. It shows how far the culture drifted. The problem wasn't rule breaking. The problem was that the rules allowed this. The legality provided cover for this. It let teams and riders believe they were on safe, ethical ground. But the physiological and psychological risks, well, they don't care about regulations. Tramadol causes dizziness, nausea, drowsiness, and dependency, we just said. Who cares about what the regulations say? Maybe this is the important part. Allowing it for so long in cycling, it shaped cycling culture. If something helps you ride through pain and it isn't banned, why not take it? Okay, let's pause for a second here, because I'm genuinely curious, because if I put myself onto that team bus in those circumstances, I'm curious what I would do in that situation. Would I take the painkillers because they're not technically against the rules? I would argue they're morally wrong. They're definitely not in the spirit of sport. Let me know in the comments below. Like, would you take them? Okay, let's jump back in to the early 2010s. The painkiller culture in cycling, it wasn't a secret at this point. It was standard operating procedure among teams. Doctors tracked dosage charts like coaches track training zones. Riders carried tablets beside gels in their back pocket. The line between medicine and performance was so blurred that even insiders struggled to tell which side of this line they were on. And for years, Tramadol, it sat right in the middle of that blurry zone. It wasn't banned, it wasn't hidden, and because it worked, it became normalised. But the side effects, they were quietly stacking up on riders. Team doctors began to notice riders getting lightheaded mid-stage, reacting a couple of seconds too slow to avoid that crash. A few riders even blacked out. On paper, they were healthy. On the road, they were a danger to themselves and everyone around them. The slow drip of incidents led to growing pressure on cycling's governing body, the UCI. In early 2019, the UCI finally drew a hard line. Tramadol was to be banned in competition. The reasoning wasn't doping, it was safety. Dizziness, drowsiness, nausea. All pretty undesirable side effects for somebody who's descending a mountain at 90 kilometers an hour, I think we'll agree. It was the end of an era. But as cycling so often proves, every ending writes a sequel. For a few seasons, the rules seemed to work. Testing tightened, teams scrubbed Tramadol from medical kits, but then in 2022, the first big test arrived. Legendary Colombian climber Nairo Quintana, twice a Grand Tour winner and one of the most respected riders in South America of all time. He finished 6th in that year's Tour de France. Weeks later, the UCI announced that 2 of his race day samples contained Tramadol. Under the new rules, that meant disqualification. Nairo Quintana denied taking Tramadol. His lawyers argued that the result was flawed. This went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They reviewed the case and they upheld the UCI's decision. Quintana lost his Tour de France result. Not banned, but erased. That distinction is important. We'll come back to that. It was the first high-profile proof that cycling's new, as they were calling it, the medicine era, that it had teeth. Yet it also revealed a deeper confusion. The drug was banned by the UCI, cycling's governing body, but not by WADA, the global anti-doping agency. So technically, Quintana hadn't broken any doping rules. Was it legal? Was it illegal? It really depended on which rulebook that you opened. That contradiction summed up the sport's entire relationship with painkillers, a web of rules, grey zones and loopholes that even professionals struggle to navigate around. And while the UCI celebrated its new stance, the peloton does what the peloton always does. It adapted. Because the demand didn't vanish with the ban. The pain stayed the same. The stages stayed the same brutal length with these horrific gradients. The expectation to push through everything stayed the same. So riders and doctors looked for the next legal fix. The name that surfaced was Tramadol, a newer opioid chemically related to Tramadol, but roughly 10 times stronger and crucially legal. The Movement for Credible Cycling, MPCC, immediately raised alarms. They called this the next Tramadol and urged the UCI to act before it spread like wildfire through the peloton. These bans, they move slower than the chemistry does all the time. By the time the committees debate, the bottles are already in team buses. They're getting passed around the peloton. What do the Giro d'Italia, Stage Slayer, Mads Pedersen and half the professional peloton have in common? Well, they're all turning to Nomio, the natural performance enhancer proven to reduce lactate buildup during intense efforts. In the 2025 Giro d'Italia, Pedersen's form was undeniable. The Danish star surged to 4-stage victories. This was a major leap in form from his previous season, and a key part of this preparation and performance was Nomio. Developed by the same researchers who discovered the performance power of dietary nitrate. You know those beetroot shots that half the peloton were using? Nomio is clinically proven to lower lactate levels, reduce oxidative stress, improve training adaptations, and deliver a noticeable boost from the very first time you take it. Riders are reporting bigger threshold power, fresher legs mid-race, and quicker recovery, all from a formula made with just 3 natural ingredients: broccoli sprouts, lemon, and sugar. Whether you're racing at the front or you're smashing local segments, Nomio helps you get more out of every ride. Take it before key sessions or races for an immediate edge, or take your training to the next level and get more out of your hard work. Go to drinknomio.com, that's Nomio, and check out this game-changing supplement. Details are in the episode show notes or description down below.